Alright guys, hello. This is Miss Porter's video tutorial on how to make a self-portrait using the tracing paper transfer method. What you're going to need today is a wooden pencil, not a mechanical pencil, okay? You're going to need your big sheet of final paper, okay? You're going to need a sheet of tracing paper, and you're going to need your printed out picture of what you're going to be drawing. In this case, a self-portrait. You're also going to need a small piece of tape. Nothing too wild. About that'll do it. There you go. First thing you're going to do is you're going to take that nice big clean sheet of white paper and you're going to set it aside so that it stays a nice big clean sheet of white paper. This method that we're using today is actually just a little bit messy and we don't want to get that all over our final paper. So the next thing that I usually do is I go ahead and set my tracing paper right on top of my picture. I'm going to set it down so that it's not quite lined up with the edge of my paper. That way I can take my tape and tape my tracing paper to my printed picture and tape that whole thing right onto my desk. That way everything's nice and secured and nothing's going to move around on me. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to start tracing the parts of our face, okay? It's really important that you have a good amount of details in your traced photo. You do have some artistic freedom here where you can leave out any parts of yourself that you're maybe not super psyched about if you really want to, okay? So maybe you don't like the way your eyebrows looked that day, or maybe your hair was kind of out of place, or maybe you had something in your teeth, okay? You don't have to include those in your final drawing, but you do want to get as many details in there as you can. So for example, I have lots of wrinkles around my eyes, and I'm going to go ahead and include those whenever I trace my face, because otherwise I look kind of like I've gotten too many plastic surgeries and I just look like a pretend person. Okay, so I'm going to make sure that I do go ahead and include those sorts of details. As you work your way around the photo, just go slow and careful and make sure you get as many details as you can. Okay, so I'm going to really pay close attention to the way that my eyebrows look here while I trace them. I'm going to try and make sure that I even get things like the shadows. There's a really light shadow right here around my eyes. So I'm going to make sure I go ahead and outline that shadow so I know where it is and I can go ahead and I'll be able to find it again later since I'm tracing it. There's this shadow right on next to my nose that I'm going to make sure I outline. As a matter of fact, there's two shadows. There's this very dark one, and then there's just a slightly dark one here next to it. And I'm going to outline both of those. I'm going to outline both of those so that I know this part was the lighter part and this part was the darker part. It'll help me shade my drawing really accurately later. You can see here I've divided, this is slightly darker than this side, so I went ahead and divided that up and I followed where I thought those lines went so that after I do the transfer, which I'll show you in a second, I know which part it should be light and which part should be dark and where those things go, okay? You need sort of thick lines when you trace this. That's one of the reasons that you have to use a wooden pencil for this project and not a mechanical pencil. And that would be because later on, in order to see these lines, to have them show up in the transfer, they've got to be a little bit thicker, and you never get a dull, thick pencil line with a mechanical pencil. That's the whole point of mechanical pencils. I have a little bit of a trick for when you draw hair. I'm going to show you really quick. And this is especially helpful, I think, for straight hair, but I think it really helps a lot for all kinds of hair types, okay? One of the biggest mistakes that people make when they go drawing hair for the first time is they want to draw hair where you draw from the root all the way to the end of the hair, the entire hair. And really the most realistic way to draw hair is by drawing it in the chunks that you see it in. So if you take a look right here, from here down to here to here, this is one hair chunk. Okay, I can tell that this part of my hair, it usually kind of bunches together. Okay, right in here is another hair chunk too. Alright, and this one even goes all the way down in front of my ears. Okay, I have another hair chunk way back here in the back, and you can't see all of it. It gets overlapped by this hair chunk. Same thing for all the way up top. I have these chunks of hair. I'm going to try and outline all together. As I get over to this side of my portrait, I'm starting to be unable to tell the difference between the two colors, so I don't know where the line is. Don't worry, that's an easy fix. Because we have our tracing paper taped to our printed picture, we can just lift up the corner, look really hard at the picture without any tracing paper on it, and then flip back and forth until we're able to kind of draw that line and know where it goes. I'm going to have to do the same thing for this side of my face here in just a little bit, but I'm going to move on to a different part of my face for now. Making sure I get these shadows good and outlined. If I don't put any shadows on my face, I start to look kind of like a weird Barbie doll made out of plastic. Those shadows and those wrinkles, they're what make you look like humans. So don't think, this is so ugly, I don't want to draw it. No, don't worry about it. You're a human. I can see just the tops of my gums there. So I'm going to go ahead and try and get those into being my drawing. You'll notice, though, that I did not draw those gaps in between my teeth. So, anytime I've ever seen anybody draw those gaps in between their teeth, it's going to look buck-toothed. Okay, you're going to look like you got some discount braces and they didn't really work out for you. So don't draw those lines in between your teeth. If you think that it looks really weird later, I'm going to show you how to add some shading to it that will separate out those teeth for you. But nobody has those hard, dark lines right in between, okay? Also, if you are concerned whenever you go and outline your mouth, if you get concerned thinking, oh man, it looks like I'm wearing lipstick, you might think about really looking at your picture and making sure, do I have a hard line that goes all the way around my mouth? I know that I don't. So maybe you need to revisit that and take a look and see Oh, well, really, I can only see, this part and that part and that part just a little bit. And I don't need a line that goes all the way around and emphasizes where my lips are. Okay. Just go slowly and carefully through your printed photo. Don't be afraid to erase. I need to get a new eraser for my pencil. But don't be afraid to erase this tracing paper. It erases really well. A lot of tracing paper is too thin to erase on. It just tears a hole in it. But this tracing paper is nice enough that it is not going to leave a hole in it if you need to erase. You just want to get all the details that you can in your drawing. I am going to go ahead and start trying to get the outline of this side of my face. That means I got to flip back and forth. And on occasion, you won't be able to really see, and you might have to guess where that edge of your face is. And if you're having trouble guessing, call me over and I can help you. I can help you get that. I'm noticing that my chin in this picture, it kind of goes up and off, and then it just disappears, and then it goes off in another direction altogether. So I'm making sure to pay attention to all of the different lines and shapes on my face. Eyes are really important. If you don't outline all the little wrinkles in your eye quite right, then your eye starts to look kind of just painted on. Especially this top part of your eyelid. Okay, I was not wearing eyeliner in this picture. As a matter of fact, I took this picture right after camping. Okay, so I was not wearing makeup. But I still have a thick line on my upper eye anyway. That's just from the shadow because my eyelid is a little bit thicker and casts a shadow down onto my eyeball. Most people's eyes have a shadow that looks something like this, and you need to, instead of just drawing one line on it, you need to draw it as a shape. Okay, you'll see how I've got two lines there on either side of that darker part. Alright. You should always just draw what you see. Don't overthink it and think, oh man, if I just draw it exactly how it looks, it's gonna look weird. That's not true. It's a part of your face. It's not gonna look weird. That's how you look. Okay? Alright. I'm going back over now, and I'm going really slowly and trying to look over all my little details and make sure I haven't left out anything that I should have drawn, just to make sure that I know for sure that I have everything that I need outlined. I'm going to go ahead and add a few more details in my hair, and I do tend to draw a little bit looser whenever I'm drawing hair, which means I get just a little bit scribbly, a little bit random, because no one's ever going to be able to look at a drawing of hair and say, well, that's not how your hair looked, if you get a single hair out of place, okay? Don't forget, while you're drawing this, and I'm going to move my picture up so that you can see me do this, don't forget to draw your neck and shoulders, okay? You don't want to end up with a drawing of just a floating head, unless that's what you're going for. Usually you want it to be clear that your head is attached to your neck, is attached to your body, so don't forget to draw this part. your shirt collar. Okay, go ahead and draw that part. If you want to include your hands in your drawing and your hands are included in your photo, go ahead and throw those in. Okay. You can see I'm kind of using my creative freedom here. I was wearing a hoodie in this picture and I don't want to include my hands because I don't have a full picture of my hands. So I'm kind of completing that hoodie in my drawing. And the same thing over here. It's a little bit dark over here and I can't quite see, so I'm going to just complete that hoodie in my drawing. And then I'll add just one more wrinkle, and then shoulders and shoulders. So, once you have your first tracing all the way totally done, so I've traced every part that I know of to trace on this picture. What you're going to do is you're going to untape your tracing paper from your photo. You're going to flip your photo over to the back, and you can see that I've done this already before with my photo because you can see those lines that it makes on my picture. What I'm going to do with that is I'm going to flip my picture over onto the back of that photo, and I'm going to very carefully trace the back of this paper exactly where my tracing lines were before. Okay? If whatever it is that you're working on gets really marked up and it's hard to tell what's what, and as a matter of fact, I'm having that problem right now, feel free to come up to the front of the room and grab a piece of blank white copy paper. I'll let you borrow one. And stick that up under your tracing paper instead of your printed out photo. That way you know exactly what's what and what isn't what. So this is flipped over. This is the back side, okay? If I started erasing on this side, it wouldn't take anything off, okay? I can just see my pencil marks through the paper. And whenever I start tracing this side, I need to have some kind of system for going over the lines, because otherwise I might realize after I'm totally done with my transfer that, oops, I forgot to trace this eye for this step, because you can't tell one way or another because there's already a line there, and if you trace over something, it hardly looks any different. There are parts of this drawing here and here that are as dark as that line on this side. So you have to be really careful and have an order to what you're doing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the top and work my way down. That way I know I've covered every part of my picture whenever I'm tracing it on the back here. So I'm going to start with my hair. My tape actually stopped me from drawing the very top of my head on the other side. I am going to go ahead and complete that part here. Keep on going around. Keep on going around. Working from top to bottom, retracing the parts that I already traced. Whenever you do this retracing, especially in parts like the hair right here, you don't have to be super exact, okay? If you go off the line a little bit, that's all right. I'm going to start working down to the side of the hair of this picture. But I've got to keep working top to bottom because otherwise I'll forget what I have done and what I haven't done. Over here, my eyebrow is kind of connected to my hair. They overlap a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and get that thrown in there. And I think my hair is now done, so I'm going to move on to the next sort of section. You can see it's already marking up my paper. Well, maybe you can, maybe you can't. You can see it's already marking up that nice clean piece of white copy paper that I started with. That's all right. If it gets so marked up that it's confusing, go ahead and get yourself another piece of copy paper. So now I'm going to move on down. Still got to be really careful that I pay attention to what parts I've traced already and what parts I have not. You might notice that the second time I go over something, I draw it a little bit differently. Maybe I think I need to correct it for some reason. If at this point you think that you might need to correct something, this is actually your last chance to do so. Gotta be very careful to trace every part. Be particularly careful when you're tracing the lines for your teeth. If you aren't really careful, you can end up with some really creepy looking teeth. Alright, I think the last thing that I have to trace on this part is the ear. Then I can move down to the neck and the clothes. This part's pretty fast, so... Alright, I've got this side totally traced, so my lines are drawn in pencil on both sides of my paper. You can see my paper here is really, really marked up at this point. If you think that it's just the best artwork ever, go ahead and hang on to it. Otherwise, go ahead and trash it. And this is where your nice big clean sheet of paper and your printed out picture come back into play, all right? So what you're going to do with this is you are going to lay your tracing paper back on top of your picture just to make sure that it is still pointing the right direction. If it lines up, that's the right direction. Otherwise, you're going to be printing it backwards. If you want your face to be facing the other direction in your artwork, then go ahead and keep it backwards. But otherwise, especially if there's any words or anything on your shirt, you're going to want it to be pointing the right way, okay? Then you can set your printed out picture aside again. Choose where on your big piece of paper you would like that picture of you to go, okay? It doesn't have to go just right smack in the middle. You can choose to set it off to the side. You can put it really, really low. You can put it really, really high. It's totally up to you. So make sure that you are happy with wherever you end up placing that. And make sure that you're leaving yourself enough room on at least one side to put all those details that we're going to surround our portrait with, okay? Once you decide where that's going to go, you can go ahead and press that tape back down onto your paper. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take your pencil, which should be dull by now. That's the reason that you got to use one of those wood pencils. It should be dull by now, and you are going to simply color over each one of your lines, okay? The more focused and neat you do this, the better your transfer is going to turn out. If you just do single lines, you might miss your lines, okay? So we kind of scribble over each line. And if you just scribble very lightly across everything, you're not going to be pushing hard enough for it to transfer down. So you need to push really hard, get some nice heavy marks, okay? Not enough to hurt your hand, but some really dark lines left on your paper when you're done, okay? And color over each of those tracing lines. I am holding my tracing paper down here to keep it from wiggling around. Even though it's taped at the top, it's not taped at the bottom, and I don't want it to move and me to transfer it whenever it's moved, because then your picture will end up looking blurry. Okay, you'll see two of everything. Whenever there are a lot of spaces between the lines, I tend to just do this scribbling over those particular lines. But whenever I get to a spot like, for example, the eyebrow, I will go ahead and just go right on over the whole thing. You don't want to leave any gaps whenever you're coloring in like this. So right here I've got a gap, alright? You don't want to leave any of those because that's going to mean a break in your line in the transfer. And let's take a really quick peek to see how this is going. So that's regular pencil lines right on your final paper, no tracing paper anywhere around, but it looks just like what you drew, because it is what you drew. I am holding my pencil just a little bit sideways, because if I just put the end on my paper, I have much smaller area to color with. But if I lay it sideways, that area of the pencil, there's much more of it. So I get to make bigger marks with less effort. Sometimes if you notice that your tracing paper really is wiggling a whole lot, take your two fingers on your other hand and put it on either side of what it is you're coloring in to really hold that tracing paper in place. I'm pushing down with these two fingers to keep my tracing paper from moving. It's a little bit easier to tell in this step what parts you've colored over and what parts you haven't, because you end up with a big dark mark all over instead of just a thin line where you can't really tell. Do you remember how I colored up underneath the tape on the back side? I can actually keep doing this coloring right on top of the tape, and it's gonna still put that line on my paper for me. So at this point, you guys are probably noticing that you are getting pencil all over your fingers, all over the side of your hand. You're going to want to touch your clean paper as little as possible. Try and find something else to rest your hand on. It might be that you use that picture of you, okay, to rest your hand on, so that you're not getting all of that pencil onto your clean paper. And you can see I've already made that mistake just a little bit. I could go get a big pink eraser that's in your materials bag and erase that before I really make it bad, but I'm not going to make you guys watch me erase anything. This is already long enough. So maybe it's a good idea for you to take that printed out picture of yourself and rest your hand on it. You could even start by doing that to keep your hand from getting dirty in the first place. If your pencil starts to get so dull that you are rubbing the wood of your pencil across your paper, so you're doing this scribble thing and it's not making any marks anymore, you can go and sharpen your pencil. Just remember, this part is easier to do with a dull pencil. So if you do go and sharpen it, I wouldn't sharpen it all the way. Don't sharpen it all the way. Not to a total pointy point. I might sharpen it just to like right there. Just so that it'll write again, but not so that the end is sharp. down my tracing paper at this part. My other two fingers really pushing, trying to keep it from wiggling. And if I draw with my pencil right in between my two fingers, it doesn't wiggle too much. The most important part is that you are pressing down. That pressing down is what's going to transfer your pencil onto your final paper, okay? Almost tore a hole in my paper there. Careful not to press too hard. That's another reason you don't want a sharp pencil. Sharp pencil is really going to poke a hole right through your paper. Alright, nearly done here, nearly done here. Alright, so I have scribbled over all the parts of my picture here. I might want to take a second at this point to go and wash this graphite off my hands, okay? That way, whenever I pull my tracing paper up, I don't start getting fingerprints all over my nice white clean sheet of paper. Alright, I'm not going to make you guys wait for me though, and I'm not about to edit this video, so I'm going to go ahead and just pull that off. And you can see there is my drawing right there on my clean sheet of drawing paper. It's even made out of pencil, so if I wanted to erase part of this for some reason, I can do that, no problem. It's clearly not done quite yet though. If you compare these, this is still just an outline. I'm going to be showing you in my next video how to add shading and shadows and really make this into a 3D realistic looking picture. For comparison, my other example, my finished example, you can hardly see the outlines in that picture anymore, okay, because I have shaded and blended out all of my outlines, all right?